Got the notes sorted. Okay, cool. Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? It's just the end of 2023, and we're here for the flagship podcast, the Celts are here. I am Quinny, and as ever, but good to see you back. First time in a wee while, he's been on hiatus, but we've got Josh back on. Josh, good to see you, mate.
Good to see you, Connie. Good to be back in the podcast. I think we've got a bit of a year review today, so should be some fun stuff involved.
Yeah, exactly. So 2023, I was going to say that, but I thought we'll get you back on because it's been a while since we've had you on the podcast. But it's been a mad roller coaster of a year, you know, looking at the notes and everything we're going to touch on in the show. We'll finish the show off with like a derby preview because I know everyone who'll be coming here will be after a bit of maybe predicted 11 score prediction kind of stuff, expectations and whatever. But it is the last show we'll be doing of 2023. And like I said already, it's been a mad one. And when you look back at everything that's actually happened in the last 12 months, it is quite staggering. There's been so much. It's almost like a soap opera at times, the amount of stuff that's actually happened. So we'll be kind of capping off the year, and you know, me and Josh will go through some of the best bits, some of the highs and the lows and everything else in between. But the first note we've got for the show, Josh, which we're both quite excited when we've seen today, is in terms of a bit of a thought experiment. If someone told you back in January Ange would leave the club for Tottenham in the summer and Brendan would come back, would you have believed them, and how would, you know, could that have been even imagined at that stage? And I'm firmly in the no camp. Could not have imagined that in a month of Sundays.
Definitely. I think is when did he leave Leicester? He left Leicester in this calendar year, if I'm correct. And when he left Leicester, that clip of him saying, "Be careful what you wish for," went flying about. So the dislike among Celtic fans for him was there. And few would have expected him to come back into the role, and he's done all right so far. He's done pretty standard, not exceeded expectations, not kind of so much met them. But he's done pretty well so far, but no, I certainly wouldn't have believed it. I certainly wouldn't have believed that we were potentially going to lose two of our key members of the squad, Carl Starfelt and Jota, and somewhat failed to replace them as well. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a year. I don't think at the start of it you'd expected there to be much upheaval as there is. It's been crazy. But at the end of the day, it's always a roller coaster. Seems to be following Celtic, but you wouldn't have changed it for the world.
No, not at all. So, I think like that kind of whole, like putting yourself back in January and thinking about that January window under Ange, you know, where we're halfway through the second season, the Champions League hadn't, you know, planned out as good as we would have liked as pair, you know, and we're thinking about what do we need in January? Can we keep a hold of all of our superstars? And we were all so excited about the levels the team seemed to be trying to move to, and doing it with Postecoglou, who obviously had never played Champions League football as a player, never mind coaching a team or doing anything like that. So we were all quite learning on the job together, but there was lots of signs of progress. There was lots to be excited about, and it was like, namely, is don't sell anyone. Hopefully we can keep everyone in the January window, and maybe there would be some more Ange certified prospects coming in, like, oh, this guy might be a player, you know, this guy might give Hatate a run for his money, or this guy could be the new left back or goalkeeper, or, you know, the other things that we've been kind of harping on about throughout the year. And compare that now, I suppose, and, you know, Ange is now at Tottenham, Rodgers is now here, and we're coming into the next January window. It is like, it feels like more than 12 months apart. It feels maybe like 3 years apart. Those kind of, because I don't think there's that confidence in the Celtic squad anymore that it's leveling up and it's moving into new territory, is there?
I think among the whole club, to be honest, when you looked at the whole spell under Ange, there was a family feel. Like there was such a connect between the manager, the players, the fans, everything around the club felt really good. Now, I don't think there's as much as that kind of feel, the feel of unity. Brendan talked about it when he initially came in the door, where he wants Celtic to be united, and when Celtic are united, they're a great force. But so far this season, I wouldn't really say there's been that much of it, if I'm honest. January window last year, I think the two players we brought in were O and Tomoki Iwata, if I'm correct in saying that. Might be one or two more here and there. Not necessarily succeeded, both players. Towards kind of the end, Ange's signings in his second season weren't too good as what they were in his first. Like, you look at Haksabanovic, he's not been successful at all. Oh, as I mentioned there, Tomoki Iwata, Bernabé's another one, Kobayashi, he also came in, was it last January he came in as well? Not done too well either. So, but when you look at what the squad is now, so many changes, so many new faces that haven't even barely played. into the bargain. So it's a lot of change. A lot of people have built this year as somewhat of a transition year. And in January, you would have in no way expected this season to be the transition year. You would expected this season to be the one where Ange really takes this team to its peak. His third season in charge. We look to do something in Europe. We potentially look to go back-to-back trebles under him, continue the domestic dominance. But at the end of the day, football's a weird and wonderful world. He's now down at Spurs. We knew he was going to eventually get a top job. We knew he was destined for the top. There's talks of Man City, everything like that. But I didn't expect it to come as soon, and I didn't expect it to be, in no disrespect to Tottenham, but I don't think they're a bigger club than Celtic. They have the bigger stadium, they have the bigger money. That's the only really pulling factor of their Premier League side.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's when you've got Celtic competing against that, it's really tough. But no, definitely wouldn't have expected the year to go the way it has. But it's been an interesting one, to say the least.
I think that's an interesting kind of angle on it, because I actually had no fear of Postecoglou leaving. I didn't see anyone taking it, like anyone of like that top 6 level, top 20 level European kind of financially anyway. And it was like Tottenham were like just scratching around in the dark. Nobody would take the job. They didn't have any idea, and they just kind of like ran out of options in a roundabout way, and that's to Ange's personal benefit and probably our detriment. But yeah, maybe after a few more years, if he'd done something like we felt we were maybe progressing towards, then of course he's a great character, and he's obviously well loved even still by Celtic fans, and everywhere he goes, he makes new pals and new friends everywhere. He's just a magnet of affection, isn't he? Yeah. So but yeah, under him, we've won the treble. We've beat Rangers 2-1 in the cup final. Keogh goes double, of course. We've also knocked him out the Scottish Cup at the semi-final stage in April. The famous goal where Celtic didn't get a free kick and Maeda knocked the ball back post for Jota. So like the first half of the year is all highs, is all ascendancy, is all like, oh, dream big and let's keep going and what can happen. And yeah, it's easy to forget the speed bumps of the transfers that, not all of them worked out, of course, or not all of them have continued to work out, or however you want to think of it, for some of the ones that are still at the club. But generally, that was the kind of move that was going there. And yeah, so and again, the last kind of thing of that is winning the treble. We kind of knew, there's lots of rumours around about that time. Ange has been talking to Tottenham, and I think like it wasn't confirmed. He's been really coy in his last couple of press conferences, but it was like a farewell tour winning that treble. It wasn't quite like I've still got the program here, and I see it all the time. Some picture for me. That is just that just encapsulates that whole like squad for me over 2 seasons, But I do feel the first treble probably that's where the pictures are from. You know what I mean? Essentially, because they had to win the second one before they could take pictures and make a program about it, of course. But so yeah, like coming into the summer is kind of where it started to that kind of, I don't want to say divide, but what you've referenced there already, that kind of separation, let's say, in some of the support.
Lack of unity. Aye, definitely. It's kind of creeped in, potentially. Obviously, Andrew's such a uniting figure. Everyone adored them. And the appointment of Brendan split some of the fans, at least in my opinion. I don't know what other people think, but when he came in, there was a lot of a camp who were like, Brendan's back, top manager, top class, is going to do really well for us. Then there was certain others who were like, don't want him back at the football club. He's snaked us before. He's going to do it again. And potentially that kick-started some of the divide that's there now. Initially started getting results on the table, but the 1-0 loss to Kilmarnock signified a lot of problems that are still potentially there today. Problems over recruitment, a lot of other issues in terms of play style. Okay, it was the start of the season. We had Lagerbielke and Navrosky starting, who are really new teammates. Had never even, I don't think one of them had trained with the team, or that might have been Lagerbielke at Ibrox. He hadn't trained with the team yet. But it's been crazy in that sense, and the unity, I wouldn't say it's not as much there today still. The 4-1 win at Hearts back in October time, that for me signified a kind of change when Brendan, the fans were singing Brendan Rodgers' name at the end of the match. But now that's it's still not there due to the run of form we went on, losing back-to-back league games for the first time since 2013, losing our 52-53 game unbeaten streak at home domestically. That's obviously caused a lot of problems. And when there's problems at a football club, fans take different views on it. That's natural. Everyone has different opinions in society, and it's going to divide people naturally. Whereas when you're succeeding, it's just everyone's happy as Larry. We're all in the same boat. We're all doing pretty well. But when things start to go wrong, that's when you get divisions. And that's naturally what's happened this season. So, not saying the season as a whole went wrong so far, because it's not still in the title race. Still, well, we've not even entered the Scottish Cup yet. We've still got 2 trophies to play for and a January transfer window to come. So it's in no way been an unsuccessful season, but so far there have been quite a few bumps along the road, and that's what's caused divisions.
It does feel like we've basically had a little like ceiling come on the previous performances. Like, and again, to kind of bring it maybe a wee bit more up until like, so we get to the summer, right? And one of the things that I hear a lot of people talking about the now with the current state of the team and all the rest of it, over the last, like, I don't know, we lost to Hearts 2-0, and then we beat Livy 2-0, we beat Dundee 3-0, warming up for the derby. You know, Kyogo's got 1 goal against Livy, which wasn't really much.
Yeah.
You know, it's like whatever. And doesn't score against Dundee, gets taken off in the 66th minute. Obviously doesn't score against Hearts. I don't think, did he get a goal in the back end of the Champions League? No. And there was a wee spell where always starting ahead of him. So this is probably like really the worst form Kyogo has been in. And like you say, like attacking wise, I just don't feel like, and you know, we could probably move this into the chronological, but like they say, the summer we've lost Jota, the recruitment that's been done thereafter. It does feel like, yeah, that's the kind of, because one of the main dividing parts of when Ange left, right, is a lot of people are saying Ange is putting his foot down. He's going to Japan. He's spending Celtic money on like what you can't get in Europe for Celtic money, and he knows what he's doing. And we were all kind of mainly worried about, you know, will that go back to Celtic type? Will we start buying, you know, Marianne Shveds and, you know, all these kind of deals and all this other stuff? Or as the club actually moved on and it wasn't Ange, you know, and that was the main question mark I think a lot of people were kind of coy on in the summer. And as we've seen the business happen, we've seen the results, the style of play kind of develop. People are more and more like realizing their opinion or finding their kind of spot on it. And unfortunately, they're not all in the same corner of the room anymore, like we once were. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing. But yeah, so I think like when you do look at it in that sense of what you said as well, that there's a league still to play for, Scottish Cup still to go for. The main thing for me is Champions League football next year, of course, which means winning the league. And like, it's just like we should not be this tight in the league at this point of the year. You know, we're looking over the last 12 months. And when you really think about that first 4 to 5 months that we're describing there, yes, Moy retires, Jota leaves, Starfelt leaves right at the end of the window. Who, by the way, I'm not a big I wasn't a huge Starfelt fan. I thought we could have upgraded on him and we should have been upgrading on him in any case. So I do understand, but him and Vickers had an amazing partnership, great clean sheet record, great domestic dominance in games they played together. But again, similar to Giakoumakis, I think Starfelt gets, you know, nostalgia vision very quickly. Like people forget how bad Giakoumakis was at passing, and some people forget about how much of a klutz sometimes Starfelt could be at the back under pressure. You know, so you know some core pieces in that team that have like moved away. But I've kind of derailed myself here, Josh. Sorry.
No.
I
think the
forgot
whole
where I was going with that.
the whole thing is with the squad, you want to improve on the players, like you want to continue to get better. Like you've just said, Carl Starfelt, you want to get better than him. You've brought in Mike Nawrocki and Gustav Lagerbielke, who are not rated by the manager. We know that. You sell Jota, obviously right at the end of the window for big money. It was kind of an offer not the player, not the club could turn down. And you bring in Louis Palma, who has done really well. He's probably exceeded my expectations, if I'm honest. The numbers he's putting up are terrific. He's not got the same flair and pizzazz about him as Jota, but he's potentially, you could argue, as effective in terms of scoring big goals and getting assists, creating chances and all this. We have to remember as well, in terms of the squad, you've missed practically 2 key players, arguably 3 key players for a big chunk of the season. Daizen Maeda, Leo Labada and Rio Hatate. But I've seen a lot of people float the argument, it's a very fair one, that despite losing those players, the backup players should be good enough to make up for their absences. And you could argue they haven't been. Yang, okay, you get called up for the South Korea Asian Cup squad today.
Yep.
Hasn't done much. Other players who've come in, Odin Holm, Paulo Bernardo, okay, he's He's got a run of games, past couple of games, and he's done okay. Scored the goal at Dundee. Not really done too well. But I feel like when those players come back, Abada's obviously Maida's back at the minute. Rio Hatate as well could both potentially be involved in the derby. It could give the team and the squad a massive boost because Abada, his last game was against Rangers on the 3rd of September. It's the last time he played. And Rio Hatate, I can't even remember the last time he played. I remember he pulled up at Pittodrie in the second game of the season, but I think he came back for that injury and then went out injured again. So there's been issues in terms of fitness and availability of certain players, but the ones you bring in should be up to a standard of a Celtic jersey. The jersey shouldn't shrink to fit inferior players, as is the phrase that is floated about. And potentially this season, you could argue it has with some of the signings, but full faith in the players that are there and the players that are there that are starting now and are coming back to do well. And Brendan's recruitment and the recruitment team to hopefully kick on in January, because they'll have learned from their mistakes. You'd like to think of bringing in quantity over quality has been the mantra that has been posed. And you're hoping they can learn from that in January.
But we have to spell quantity KWON.
Another one. Oh man,
love that.
See with Con as well. Do you know what I find so funny is when he came out and said before he joined, I will be the best player at Celtic and I'll move to the Premier League or the Bundesliga, and he has 0 first-team appearances. Like, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable.
It's one of these people. Yeah, it's one of these things where I think Raskin has been saying it quite a lot at Rangers. We used to have some people say it once in a while when they came to Scotland. Like some of them would even say, "I want to play for like Dundee, so I might get signed for Celtic or Rangers," kind of thing. It just doesn't ever tend to pan out too well. I never really hear anyone saying those quotes and then it really materializes it much. You know, they're always people that need to maybe blow their trumpet a bit more, maybe try and puff their chest out, a wee bit of false confidence to get you there in the first place, kind of thing. And the big man, by all accounts, I think he'll be heading out in January as well.
Yeah,
so
I would suspect so. Probably. Well, he's in a long-term deal, so it'll probably be a loan. Can't really see any club looking to potentially sign him permanently. But look, on those quotes there, like you were saying, the only one I can remember that came off, and it wasn't talking about himself, he was talking about the team as a whole, was Giacomakis. And about February time in Postecoglou's first season, he came out and said, I think we will win the championship. I think we have the quality. I think this team is better than our rivals, and we will win the championship. And as fate, 3 months later, we won the league up at Tannadice. So fair enough to the big man for that. But yeah, apart from that, these quotes don't tend to pan out too well. A la Quan, Nico Raskan over in Govan. So yes, it's risky when you say stuff like that.
For sure. To kind of lighten the mood a little bit, what was our favourite moment of the year? And if you're listening to this is definitely the moment for the comment section. Favourite moment of the year? Could be a goal, could be a match, could be a trophy lift. You know, what are you thinking, Josh?
I'm going to go with, from a personal point of view, the 3-2 win over Rangers in April, primarily for the fact that it was my 18th birthday weekend. Nice. Also, some of the goals in that game were memorable. The Jota one where he rounded the keeper. Kyogo got his brace. The first time he'd obviously announced himself in derbies before, but his first kind of goals against Rangers at Parkhead in front of the whole of the Celtic support. It put us a huge step forward to winning the title. I remember I was watching or listening to a podcast just last week on from Alistair Johnston and Greg Taylor, and they were talking about how that game was the one that built a great sense of confidence within the squad that they could actually kick on and win that treble. So mentally for the players, that was a big win, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that one. 18th birthday weekend, Easter weekend, couldn't beat it.
Mine was definitely the last game of the season at home to Aberdeen. For the, I showed you the programme for it. Oh, sorry, St Mirren. I had Aberdeen in my mind there. Was it Aberdeen? Actually, let me go and check. But it was the last game of the season because I was out in Merchant City afterwards, and it was just some day. What was the last game? It was Aberdeen. Yeah, I don't know why I had that. That's because I had that programme messing my mind for a second. But 5-0 it was in the day. Yeah, I had to remember. But it was just Merchant City afterwards. It was just absolutely mental. It was brilliant. So definitely one of my. It felt like a festival. You know, it was a great celebration, and I think it was a wee bit of pent up emotion as well from some of the previous years of like lockdowns and stuff like that. Yada yada.
Yeah.
So it was like a
Yeah.
real big outpouring of people are, if you know Trongate, people were climbing up the
Uh,
towers and they were hanging off the everything and smoke bombs were going off. People were singing, everybody's getting merry and getting on it. And it was brilliant. That's definitely my highlight of the year. And I was flipping between that and then I thought this was the other reason I tripped myself up with Aberdeen, because I took my youngest son to his first Celtic game this year, and it was Celtic winning 6-0 to Aberdeen. And I'll tell this for 2 seconds, right? But like, he's only 5 and he's not really into football too much. And the game, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but everyone will kind of remember. But we went like 1 or 2 up in the first half.
yeah.
And I was like to him, what do you think the score will be today then? And he was like 6, right? Obviously, everyone now knows how the game goes, right? The game kind of dragged out for a bit. There was no goals, there was no nothing. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't think we're going to get the, and then it's like we got a third, and it's like, oh, we got 3. That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's about 4 or 5 guys sitting around us, which was good crack. And all 6 goals went in, and it was just like it was just a pure one of those magic moments. So beating Aberdeen 5-0 or 6-0, I can't remember what one I can't decide what one I like more, but yeah, they're up there for me for sure.
Class. I think that Aberdeen game, the 6-0 one, all 3, half the goals, the 3 last goals came in stoppage time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's class.
And it was like, right at the end, 4 or 5. Oh, Jake, we'll get a 6. And then it was like, and all that stuff. And obviously, everyone was sitting around, just could hear the wee man and stuff like that. It was just great crack. If we go on the polar opposite of that, worst moment of the calendar year, could be a result, could be a situation, again, an injury or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna go with the defeat to Lazio at home in the Champions League.
Oh.
Obviously, there's been the defeats to Hearts and Kilmarnock and domestically, but that defeat for me was just the way it went. Luis Palma gets the goal in the 82nd minute to put us 2-1 up in the Champions League. It's going to be a famous European night, you're thinking. VAR steps in and goals disallowed. And remind, this is like our second Champions League game, so you really need the points.
Yeah.
And you're going into stoppage time thinking, right, we'll get a point. We can potentially go on and push for a winner here. Then the last kick of the ball, Guendouzi floats it into the back post, and Pedro puts it in. It's the goal we've seen so many times where it's in Europe, where it's floated into the back post. It's a header back across goal. And I just remember the silence coming out of Celtic Park that night was unreal. I think I'm only young, so I don't remember really dark times as a Celtic supporter. But coming out that night, it was just so eerie and quiet. It was unreal. The bus back to where I stay was eerie and quiet. It was just weird and just gutting as a whole to lose a game like that. The fact Palma scored added to it, and it was disallowed in just I think it was the 98th minute or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And that potentially set the tone for the rest of the European campaign. But it was a really tough one to take.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. Actually, I never really thought about the Lazio game. I thought my worst moment of the year was definitely the Feyenoord game, the first one, because expectations for me were 11 out of 10. The draw was brilliant. The squad, we're still trying to work out if it was going to be good enough or whatever. But if we were going to get out the group, it was always going to be head-to-head with Feyenoord. Really. Lazio, sure, if you could get something, we would have taken it, and Atletico and whatever. But we all seen Feyenoord being the double header to do something, and then going down to 9 men. It just feels like 5 more games to go, and you just know that it's been goosed already. So that one for me definitely sticks in the back of the craw in terms of a match. But also in terms of worst moment, I do also think maybe selling Jota is up there, because we're not even bloody spent the money. You know what I mean? So does that then put the club into a false state of being really healthy financially and just put the feet up and just go, cool, we've getting, they've planned out the way they've planned out the season so far, maybe in the aftermath of that unforeseen giant windfall, as well as Postecoglou, by the way, who we got money for, which is unlike Celtic to get money for a manager. But we got money for a manager as well. So it maybe in a roundabout way that, if we didn't sell Jota, we'd still have him, obviously. I don't think there's anyone we signed this summer we wouldn't have signed anyway.
Yeah, that's a shout, actually. A lot of the players, to me, look potential players who would come in, even if Ange was still at the club. Yang, Kwon, definitely. Navrosky, Lagerbielka fit the bill. So yeah, I would potentially agree with that. Those signings were already in the works. Odin Thiago home, literally met Brendan Rodgers in Santa Ponza before Brendan Rodgers was announced as Celtic manager. So that one was in the works well before Brendan was appointed. So yeah, they were definitely going to be signing anyway, I would suspect, regardless of the manager.
Yeah. And looking at the squads now from that January there, we kind of done this, I suppose, when we came into the beginning of the season when the summer window closed. But the January year-on comparison, we kind of done it a little bit earlier in the show, but I do quite like it. But it's safe to say we're probably weaker this January than last.
Yeah,
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that 100%. You look at the form as well. That's a big bit of it. You look at how we're playing then, the football we were playing then, the feeling around the club then, and you look to where it is now. And a lot of that's, of course, it's down to the squad and how the players are playing. And there is no denying that it's not as good as last season. So yeah, there's definitely been a lack of progress, potential hint of regression. So it's been an interesting year to say the least.
Yeah. I think I was trying to explain this earlier when we were talking about something else and ended up talking myself into a hole. But I do think, like, Kyogo, honestly, like, his form under Rodgers, it beggars belief. I don't think enough people are really hammering in on it because, like, Kyogo was a free scoring, deadly kind of striker that we were waiting to just get the Champions League stuff under his belt. And now this year, he can't score in the league. Like I mentioned before, he's lost a few games there to O. And O's not really done anything to lose his place, but Kyogo got his place back. And
Yeah.
he played a couple of games, got one goal, gets subbed off at 66 minutes. He's probably going to start the derby.
Yeah.
I was saying as well after the Hearts game, like coming into this January window, basically the game before that we have is the derby. I'm not pessimistic about the game, but I've never been less excited for a derby match in recent memory. Like I'm not. Like normally, even with the form and different things that have gone on over the last couple of years, especially, like I've always fancied, we'll turn them over 4-0, or we'll beat them by 5 or something. But like I really I can't see what's going to happen. I can't imagine the team. And Palma as well, we've mentioned a few times, right? See, one thing that really does I think it's overlooked quite a lot in all the Palma chat, right? It's especially the chance creation statistic, right? A corner swung into the box that's met by a Celtic player with a chance, right? So he's not creating anything, right? But see, when you leave a game with 23 corners and everyone's talking about, Luis Palma created 10 chances. He took all the corners. So every time Scales got a head on it and it went over, or every time someone got a toe on it or whatever, as long as a Celtic player touches it, that's chance creation statistic captured. So, like, his ball was beautiful. And I was questioning him for this recently. Can he play those line-breaking passes? Because maybe he could play inside the pitch a bit more.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he done for Bernardo. He played a lovely kind of line-breaking pass, played him on the run, put him on the front foot. That was a great ball, great assist from him. That's a chance. That's a chance, but not a corner.
That goal reminded me a bit of the runs Hatate would make into the box under Ange, those kind of third man runs where Jota would play the pass. It reminded, or Taylor would play the pass one off. It reminded me a bit of that. Just on Kyogo, certainly regression in his form, whether that's down to just a lack of confidence for not scoring or play style. I don't know what you think. I'd potentially say it's probably a bit of both. Obviously, the way Brendan's deploying him, it seems to me, I know nothing about the tactical. You're obviously a UEFA licensed coach, so you know much more than me. But for me, he's just dropping deep, getting more involved in the play potentially than he used to, and he's not getting the service he used to as well. That's a big point. For me, the goal, sorry, not the goal, the chance he had up at Dens Park in Boxing Day epitomised just how much of a dip he's on. Brilliant ball over the top from Matty O'Reilly. He's onside. The Kyogo of last season puts that away 100%, and it goes wide. The Celtic fans even started cheering before the ball hit the net because they thought it was going in. Aye, there you go. So it's just, he's on a sheer dip. And I thought he got his mojo back when he got the goal against Livingston in the 2-0 win. But then he gets that chance against Dundee and he puts it wide. If he scores that chance, we're potentially not here sitting having this discussion and we're saying that that's Kyogo back, going into the derby, could grab a couple of goals here, happy days. But now there's clear signs that he's on a dip and he's not doing 100% as well. But I liked what Brendan Rodgers done after the Livingston game, taking a bit of heat off him, think it was one of his post-match presser, or it was on Sports Sound, where he said he's only 3 goals worse off than he was at this point last season. Just taking a bit of heat off him from the media. But then I was thinking about this. You're just walking about and you just have critical thoughts about football coming into your head randomly. The World Cup was on last season from about mid-November to mid-December. So by this point, he'd played much less games and he was 3 goals better off. So that's potentially a point of note.
I was going to say, this is probably the longest stretch Kyogo's been fit
Yeah.
in his Celtic career as
Mhm.
well. He's always
Yeah.
had a wee injury here or there.
Yeah.
I don't think Rodgers has had to worry about a Kyogo injury, really. It's just been his
No.
form. Maybe he's
Yeah.
had a wee knock or something, but I don't think it's been anything substantial.
Yeah.
If it was, I've forgotten it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do think we need to get firing. Because I think that's kind of what when I think about the team. If your main striker isn't still chapping at the goals, and he might say, "Oh yeah, it's only 3 goals worse off." Well, let's take those 3 goals we're worse off, and let's see what fixtures we could have used them in where he didn't get a goal. Well, how about losing 2-0 to Hearts? Imagine we had a striker that could score 2 goals and make that a
Yeah.
draw.
Mhm.
And then how about the Kilmarnock game where we lost 2-1? Imagine we had a striker that could score 1 goal and make that 2-2.
Yeah.
So the 3 goals he's worse off are 2 points, you
Mm.
know, two
Yeah.
draws essentially in the last couple of wins. You could go through the season and look at the Motherwell game, give him a goal there to get us a victory if you wanted. So
Yeah.
I get the point, but like goals are currency. So I don't unless you've got the points where you don't need them. If we're beating
Yeah.
teams all the time anyway, then
Mhm.
yeah, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. Kyogo's 3 goals behind because
Yeah.
Palmer's turned up and this guy's turned up and he's chipping in now. But when you're not getting results and your main guy isn't scoring, like it's not. I
Yeah.
don't think there's many silver linings to be taken from it. That takes us on to a nice little kind of a positive again. We've got a nice little
Mhm.
sandwich effect going throughout these points, which
Mhm.
has been fun. But who has been your standout player for 2023? Who's been the one that's been clearly cut above?
I would I would go with Matt O'Reilly. Potentially a bit of recency bias, but since the summer, he's just been absolutely brilliant for me. Celtic's best player. He creates so much going forward. He does so well. He's a presence in the midfield. Got the assist for Kyogo at Ibrox. Scores big goals. Yeah, for me, he's been a standout. Even January to kind of June time last season, he was beginning to cement a place in the team. He'd gone a long drought without a goal. Then he bagged a brace, I think it was, away at St Mirren, and that's kind of kick-started how well he's done. He was in a bit of competition with Aaron Moy for a place in the team. Initially, it was Tom Rogic, understudy, and he's gone on to do so well. Hints of Rogic to his game a bit, since he's a tall guy, can score great goals. But yeah, he's been a standout for me this season.
Yeah, it's hard to look.
This year.
Yeah, it's hard to look past him in 2023 as a whole, isn't it? Recency bias or not, because he's definitely been like cut above. We've just seen some Inter Milan links to him over the last week or two. They've signed another midfielder from Napoli, so I don't think that will
Yeah,
rumble on for much
Zielinski.
longer. And a lot of people like, and I think there's a lot of merit to it, but there's a good theory that a lot of these red tops publish these links like a few days before derbies all the time, and it's like
Yeah.
there is a pattern to it. So
Yeah. I seen a
um,
headline: Rogers is the favourite for the Newcastle job yesterday. So there you go. Well, bookie's favourite, so you can
yeah,
do what you want into that. But
after the
yeah,
history we've got, I wouldn't rule anything out at this stage. But I don't think that likely, to be honest with you. But I think O'Reilly like is the one that like now like last summer, I was worried that Hatate or Abada would be the ones that would be sold
Mhm.
because I think like statistical analysis, those guys jump off the page, and when you watch them, they're clearly really good players.
Yeah,
So I thought one of them might be maybe the players that get sold in the summer. It was Jota, obviously not one of those two. And even now, I think if anyone was to come and spend big money at Celtic, it could only be O'Reilly they would be looking at.
Mhm.
With the way the team's playing, obviously the other guys I just mentioned haven't been fully fit recently, which will put them probably safely in our hands until probably
Yeah,
next January because it's unlikely
yeah,
you get a big summer move for some of these guys. Um, but let's see. But yeah, and I think that's just it's a testament to the quality shown both sides of the game going forward, going box to box. And like you said, at the back end of 2022, he was playing great, but not scoring, not
Mm.
getting really many assists either. And then the beginning of this year, he really caught fire and got some goals and all the rest of it. And this year, for me, he's been the one keeping us afloat,
yeah,
like in terms of
definitely.
like
Crucial goals,
winning
absolutely
games.
crucial
Yeah,
goals. You look at the one at Motherwell away,
yeah.
absolutely crucial. Early season to get the points there, and he's single-handedly been the standout in a couple of games. Kilmarnock away, despite us losing the match, scores the opener, had a chance. in the game to put us 2-0 up in the second half or 2-1 up in the second half. So yeah, he's been absolutely amazing this year, Riley.
Yeah, agreed. So year to date, he's got 12 assists and 12 goals for Celtic in League and Champions League. Don't know about Cups, which for a centre mid isn't too shabby. That would be over 40 starts and 5 sub appearances. So
Yeah.
40 games, 24 goal contributions
You
recorded
can't complain.
is
For a
pretty
midfielder,
tidy.
that's really good. Particularly under Brendan Rodgers as well. He's kicked on and he's done so well. He takes care of himself off the pitch in terms of his mental health and stuff. I remember being at a presser a couple of weeks ago and he said he does Pilates outside of the club. So he's certainly aware of keeping himself fit, mentally fit, healthy, and he seems like a very intelligent guy. He speaks very well, very impressed by him. And
He's a neat, pray, love kind of guy.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I've no doubts he can go to the top of world football.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. I think he's shown all the great signs. I've just seen actually a few of those appearances that came into that there were like his cap for Denmark and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Maybe like
yeah,
38 appearances in
yeah,
club and Champions League over this season,
mhm,
something like that. But
yeah,
very healthy ratio all the
yeah,
same.
definitely.
The next one, Josh, is who has surpassed expectations? I'll
Ooh,
probably start this one because for
mhm,
me, it can only be Scales. Now, I've been a
yeah,
big Scales fan since like
mhm,
he's been at Celtic. I never really thought what he was going to make it at Celtic, but I just thought this guy's like a good player, and
yeah,
it's a bit unfortunate he's not going to make a career for himself at Celtic. And like obviously, since the summer, opportunities have been given to him, and he's grabbed them with both hands. And he's the one that, like, I always thought he's good, and he could maybe play a job similar to like the Ralstons do. We see
yeah,
Welsh doing now. I always thought he's a guy that could maybe do that for us as well. But um, he's definitely went way and above expectations. Like I'm hearing some fans now, like over the last week or two, throw some shade his way, and honestly, it's just not on. This guy has been almost infallible all season long. He's played next to Lagerbielke, he's played next to Phillips, he's played next to Carter Vickers. I don't think Iwata's played centre back this year. I don't
no,
think he's played with Naroki. Maybe he has actually. So I don't think Scales has really missed a game actually. So
no, he's been
he's been playing with
fresh.
everyone,
Yeah,
left centre back, going up and down the pitch. I think he's been great. And let's say I just don't think he really puts a foot wrong. He might not be that glamorous in a lot of stuff he does, but really, like I don't think there's any game you can look at and say he let you down there. There's maybe the
mhm,
odd thing where he's maybe like a yard behind someone or something, but it's not like he's a bomb scare or he's
yeah,
like Starfelt has in the past, like Jens had in the past, like everyone else at Celtic has had Lagerbielke this year. I've had like, klutz moments,
yeah,
and something's happened. He doesn't have any of that in him at all. He's like, so
yeah.
exceeded expectations.
The fans have confidence in him, full confidence in him. I think when you put in a performance like he did at Ibrox in the 1-0 victory, that gains a lot of respect from the supporters and a lot of trust and confidence from the fans. And that's what he's got. And since then, he's never looked back. He's been a standout performer, winning his duels, winning his tackles, and playing the ball out from the back. Okay, could potentially improve on that with some of his passes. But some of the ones as well, see the ones he plays where it's in behind the lines for the likes of Palma. He plays it over the top. Some of those balls are absolutely brilliant. And it helps so much that he's left footed as well. Big height, big boy, and he knows what Celtic's about, being Irish, growing up in Ireland. He's been picked for the Irish national team now, which is great to see for him. So yes, his success story has been brilliant. You always get a couple of players under a new manager who succeed who you didn't think would succeed, and Scales is certainly one of them.
Yeah, 100%. And I say it's surpassing expectations at every turn. So, and again, like with big dominant centre backs like that, like you just need to look at what the mob across the river sold
Mhm.
their big left back for to Ajax. See if
Yeah,
you've got big physical,
yeah,
um, a good physical presence, a left foot, and a lot of these successful statistics like duels winning, aerial
mm,
completions, balls into the final third, like we're talking about.
yeah,
Like you'll start to get noticed by people. I've seen
yeah.
some really tentative links already. I won't quote what they were to or anything
Mhm.
like that. But like Scales is a guy, like I say, it surpassed my expectations. My expectations were pretty high for him, and hopefully he goes on to continue that.
Mhm.
Probably takes us on a downer, Josh. But who
Mhm.
has been of 2023 the most disappointing Celt? The most
Um,
disappointing boy in the hoops.
yeah, I would. So you could argue Kwon because he's not made an appearance, but I'm going to go with a player who we didn't sign this year. We signed him in summer 2022. I want to say Alessandro Bernabei.
Ooh,
For me, under Rodgers, I thought he was really going to kick on as an overlapping fullback, but he's been exiled completely. Greg Taylor's started basically every game in all competitions, if I'm correct. I had quite high expectations for him this season. It was the Athletic Club friendly at Celtic Park, James Forrest testimonial. We scored in that game, and he done really well, getting up and down that left-hand side. That's the only time I've ever sat in the main stand at Celtic Park, actually, and I just remember him bombing up and down that side in that second half. So yeah, I had high expectations for him after that. I think a lot of people were in the same boat of him kicking on under Rodgers, but he never seemed to materialise. And reports last week suggesting he's going to be away in January. There's interest from Italy and Argentina, so doesn't look like he has a long-term future in the club. And Brendan wants a left back in January as well. So
yeah. I think Bernabe definitely disappointed a lot of people with a lot of high expectations, because apparently we have South American experts at the club, and it's the only player we've signed from South America. So you'd think if we're only going to buy one, it would have been decent.
Yeah.
But alas, it's not kind of panned out. I was quite torn on this one, and I don't know if I was really disappointed that Kobayashi didn't turn out pretty good, to be honest with you. I thought he would have turned out a bit better, but I think the one who's definitely been the most disappointing for me over 2023 under Ange and then under Brendan, that he didn't kick on or get a Celtic career going, is probably Haksabanovic, because I thought he showed a lot of good promise early on in the Celtic career. Player of the month of November 2022, probably last calendar year it would be now. Never always fit, never really got a proper place in the squad under Ange. It felt like it was not really an Ange winger, and he couldn't really play in Ange's midfield either, and he was not really an Ange signing. And then when Brendan comes in, Haxa played a wee bit early pre-season in Japan, and we looked quite good pre-season. I thought, maybe, because he's not really that dissimilar to Palma. He's got a good left foot. He likes a delivery. He's not that quick. He's not that strong. But at least Haksabanovic can kind of dribble a bit, I think. So I don't really think they're that markedly different. And I expected what we're seeing from Palma to be on the table for Haksabanovic under Rodgers. And obviously that's not happened. He finds himself at Stoke on and off the bench with injury and just not really getting a game. Or whatever. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed that never worked out. But we still own him. Maybe we'll sell him for a few quid.
Definitely. I don't think he has a long-term future at the club after his Instagram post in around August time. He said, what was it, if they don't see your value, you're better off elsewhere, something like that. When you make a post on social media like that, your future's basically over, particularly under manager like Brendan Rodgers, who doesn't take any rubbish like that. Stoke, he's not really done too well. He just came back from a groin injury, a couple of substitute appearances over the last week. So he's not really impressed there. They've had a change of manager. His Stoke City, but I don't see him having a future at Celtic beyond the summer. Probably depart. I was a big fan of the signing when he came in. A player who looked like he had that bit of quality. I remember the game against Real Madrid in the Champions League at home, the 3-0 loss. He came on for the last half hour of that one. It was one of his first Celtic appearances. And I remember thinking, wow, he could actually be all right, mate. I remember him like getting on that left-hand side against Danny Carvajal and beating him a couple of times and getting some shots away, but never kicked on. Had some big chances in the League Cup final against Rangers, 2-1 win to make it 3-1 and seal the cup, where he was 1-on-1 with the keeper, put it either straight at the keeper or put it wide a couple of times. There was a chance he had as well in the Scottish Cup final against Inverness. If he scored one of those goals, he makes a name for himself and potentially kicks on from there, but he never seemed to. His early form at the club was good, but he ruined it for himself with that Instagram post for me.
Yeah, great memory, Josh. Love that added detail, mate. So I think that's kind of 2023 kind of encapsulated in a little kind of 40-odd minute chunk. Hopefully he's had a good time getting involved in the comment section. We are, and I'll try my best when the podcast is going out, so hopefully you've enjoyed timestamps if I've managed to get them on for the little sections and you've managed to play along with us somewhat. But time is of the essence, Josh. We have got, the league waits for no man. We have got the last game of 2023. We're at home, we're at Paradise, and we're welcoming the baddies to town. Now, hats off, credit where it's due to them. They won their Europa League group. Again, somehow they're managing to do things in Europe that Vey does continuously, despite, honestly, I don't know how many Rangers. I've watched Rangers in Europe over the last, 4 years, maybe 5 or 6 times. And every time I'm thinking, how the hell are they winning this match? Or how have they won this? It just beggars belief how it happens, but it happens, and credit where it's due. But coming into this game, all that kind of stuff goes out the window. It's probably the only thing they've got to maybe give them a bit of confidence coming into this game. They've had some decent performances in Europe. But this game, like I mentioned for me earlier on, I'm not feeling that confident coming into it, so I really don't know really where to start with this game, Josh, to be honest with you.
It's a really close one. Celtic, for me, are probably the underdogs going into it, whether we like it or not. It was particularly the same as when we were in September. Celtic were the underdogs going into the derby due to the injuries they had. But it's at Celtic Park. Got to remember that. Parkhead, the last time Celtic were beaten in a derby at Parkhead was 2019, when Stephen Gerrard's Rangers came and picked up a 2-1 win. Now, it's very hard to call. The Celtic have the slight advantage because of the fan situation. There's absolutely going to be no Rangers fans in Parkhead, whether we like it or not. That's just the way it is now. It's a very hard one to call. Rangers have the more momentum going into the game. They had the League Cup win, topped their Europa League group, unbeaten under Philippe Clement so far. They'd have probably been happy and sad at the same time to have their game called off midweek against Ross County. Didn't get them to have any more injuries or potential suspensions, give them more rest time going into the game. If you'd asked me a couple of weeks ago how confident I was in Celtic getting a result, not so. After the defeats to Kilmarnock and Hearts, but the last two games have filled fans with a bit of confidence. The wins over Livingston and Dundee, kept 2 clean sheets in a row, winning 2-0, winning 3-0, dominating both games. Livingston didn't even have a shot at Celtic Park, first time that's happened in the Premiership this season. And then up at Dundee, okay, taking the chances wasn't there, but the intensity Celtic played their football at and the way they played it and they dominated Dundee, it was very pleasing to see. So now, going into this game, there's more confidence among the supporters, but it's a very close one. It's going to be very tough to call.
I don't get where this more confidence comes from, but over these last 2 games, like,
I know
I'm listening to stuff. I listen to a lot of Celtic fan media. I try and show up in comment sections and live chats when I can as well. But like, I'm listening to so much stuff, and people are saying the same thing you're saying, and I don't get where you're getting it from. I don't see where people get more confidence from. I think, like, I don't know, the games. I know we beat them 3-0 and 2-0 and stuff like that, but it was you're pulling your head out the whole way through it. We've not looked better,
I wouldn't say it's a vast amount of more confidence, like confidence, oh, we're going to go and win the game 3-4 nothing. But it's just a bit more, okay, it's better than it's been, put it that way, because when you look at what we were subjected to in the defeats to Kilmarnock and Hearts and compare it to the last 2 games, there's been, for me, a lot more progress. But there's still that hint of about the derby that it could easily go either way. It could easily.
Yeah, it'll be an absolute coin toss. Rogers playing mind games regarding to Abada and Hatate's potential availability. I don't really know what to make of this, to be honest with you. I don't think any of them should be really in the frame to start. I can't imagine they're going to be fighting fit, 100% ready for it. Hatate, but has got form for starting right back after an injury. He's done it his whole Celtic career, essentially. It's not been... I think maybe Rogers tried to bring him off the bench, maybe coming back from an injury, but Ange have just deepended him, just chuck him in, get him in there. Do you think that's mind games, or do you think it's a genuine update?
I think it is probably a genuine update regarding at least Abada. He trained on Christmas Day, then they left him in Glasgow when the team went up to Dundee, and he trained on Boxing Day as well. So he's continuing to build up his fitness. Hatate could potentially be a bit of mind games, listen, you never know. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the bench. I don't think they'll start. Even if Hatate is fit, it would be harsh to drop Paulo Bernardo after the last 2 games, in my opinion. So you could, I think, potentially one out, maybe 2 will be in the bench.
Paulo Bernardo's probably the only one I've got increased confidence in coming into this game, because I didn't think he did anything for us in the Champions League that was
not
worthy of why we've signed this guy or anything, And as I say, from the people I've spoken to in Portugal and stuff like that, he's not like that highly regarded in Benfica. Is like, like he's good in that, but he's not anything spectacular. But he's looked a little bit better domestically over the last couple of games. He could have had 2 goals, He was really unlucky, man, And if he's going to play like that, he won't be scared of playing Rangers. He won't be like getting, I think he'll do quite well in that match. And it's good that he's had some form building up to it. So I'm actually a wee bit more confident on him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've been impressed by him the past couple of weeks. In no way am I saying now we should go out and spend the 6 million, whatever the buy option is, and buy him permanently. But if he keeps up his form, then potentially, he could, because that the third midfield spot in that team has been one that's been coveted since Hatate's been injured. You look at players that have come in. Holmes tried to nail it down. Iwata came in for a bit. which allowed McGregor to push further forward and Iwata got injured. Other players coming in and trying to nail it down. Turnbull's another one. Bernardo's come in last couple of games. He's not really started domestically that I can recall. He was the one who played the European games and didn't really do too well. But now domestically, the physical side potentially suits him more because he is quite tall. He is quite a well built guy, and
He's pretty game.
he's
Yeah.
even his passes are clever. He's making those third man runs into the box like we've seen. But I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and say he's going to be a superstar and do what Hatate done in the Glasgow derby and score 2 goals. But you never know. You never know. Hopefully he can kick on between now and the end of the season because he seems a pretty well grounded guy. They put him in front of the media a couple of months ago and he talked pretty well as well. So he's still only young. He's only 21. I remember thinking when he signed he's like 23, 24, but he's only 21 years of age, which is still pretty young. About the same age as Leo
Yeah.
Labad. So he's a good prospect, but it's for him now, it's about kicking on and really grasping this opportunity that he has, and that starts in the derby.
Yeah, I'm with you. And maybe one of the, I don't know if this is a real serious question coming into this game, but with super sub Mikey Johnson making the 3-0 victory look like a 3-0 victory because before he came on, nothing was happening. Really, like we were going nowhere fast. And all he did was run at people, have a go, try and drop the shoulder, try and run between the lines, a give and go, 1-2 here and there. That kind of energy, does he get the start? I don't think he does, certainly. But there's a lot of chat of, and I think this is really clever if it does happen, but putting Maeda on to the left I do think it's a bit conservative, but, trying to defend the right back when we're at home. But I do see the logic. We get more out of Dyson on the left anyway. So I really like that thought. Maybe that then leaves up Johnson room on the right. I know he's been rubbish on the right.
Yeah,
Palma on the right. Does Maeda stay on the right? I don't know. But what do you think about the whole Mikey Johnson and the whole winger kind of picture coming into this game?
I think some people that are suggesting he starts are getting too far ahead of themselves. You look at how he's played up until he scored that brace. He's had several opportunities in the team. He got a run of starts and he didn't do well. Let's face it, he was in no way impressed. Everyone was saying that's his Celtic career over. Then he comes in against Dundee during the week, scores a brace in 10 minutes, and everyone's saying he's the best thing since sliced bread. And we've got to remember the amount of chances this player has had at Celtic and he's not taking them. So for me, he shouldn't start the game. You've got 2 international players. Okay, Johnson's an Ireland international. But you've got 2 players who are proven they've done well before. They're on good runs of form. Maeda, he's done it in Derby. Scored at Ibrox last season. He's done it in derbies before. Louis Palma, he seems the go-to man at the minute. So yeah, definitely I wouldn't start Mikey Johnston. Potentially as an impact player because he seems to do pretty well when he comes off the bench, when the opposition have tired and his fresh legs come on and runs at the opponents. But like you mentioned there, he's not been good at all on the right. And I think that's one of the first times he's played on the left wing this season. And it's no coincidence he's cutting in from that left-hand side and scoring the 2 goals. So potentially as the game goes on, if you play Maeda on the left, Johnson comes on because Maeda's probably not 100% fit yet. Maybe Mikey Johnson comes on for the last 15, 20 minutes when the opposition have tired and looks to cut inside on Tavernier and put one into the bottom corner to win us the game 2-1. You never know.
Impact sub's a good shout.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Forrest has been that effective from the bench. He's like, like Forrest more and more I see him, I'm just like, I'm kind of getting on the same boat as a lot of other people where it's like, he isn't actually really that effective for us. Like, I've always kind of thought he's got still a place in the squad or whatever. But when you see Johnson, the kind of impact he can make from the bench, like Forrest doesn't really have that yard of pace that he
Johnson
does.
has a point to prove. That's the difference.
Well. Very motivated.
Forrest is 32, 33 years of age. He's been round the block at Celtic, but Mikey Johnson is about 9, 10 years younger than him, and he's fighting for his Celtic career, and that's evident in the way he plays for me.
Fair. I'd go along with that for sure. And I think this is probably the biggest, I don't know if I would want to say unexpected question mark, but one of the big question marks has definitely come out off the back of the Dundee game. Carter Vickers subbed off, air quotes, injured, right? And I don't know if you heard the post-match comments from Brendan Rodgers around it, but he talks about it over like maybe say 20 seconds, and like everything he says contradicts the last thing he says. So he says something like, basically they've told Carter Vickers if he feels anything, he just tells them and he takes them off. But he starts off by saying, Cameron Vickers is the guy that won't tell them, and he's
Yeah,
the sort of guy that wants to play all the time, and they made the decision to take him off. So it's
yeah,
like he's clearly brittle. They're clearly worried about. I don't know if it's the same leg as the surgery. I suppose it is. And we have plenty of options. So there is no need for him to die on his sword for us, particularly when we're winning a
yeah.
match at Dundee. So I totally get that. But, and again, if you listen to the comments, I think CCV's in for the derby. I think he's 90-minute capable in the derby as long as he doesn't, and I think that's just total precautionary. Keep the guy
Yeah,
wrapped in cotton wool.
definitely, definitely. Coming off the back of an injury that he had where he was out for a while, it's wise to bring him off when you're winning 1-0 away at Dundee, to be honest with you. Options you've got Lagerbielke, you've got Navrosky, you've got Stevie Welsh there. So there are options, but you'd want Carter Vickers to be in there. He is absolutely crucial to the back line. I think the Livingston game at home, for me, he was arguably man of the match in that one. Just the way he nullified their attackers when they looked to break, and that was evident in the fact Livingston had no shots on goal. So for me, he's a crucial player, and it was the hamstring. This is what Brendan said. He was like, he felt a bit of tightness in the hamstring. He's not pulled it or anything, which is good. So for me, he'll likely start the game.
Yeah, I think so too. Centre back pairing of Scales and Welsh is what is feared will take its place. If he doesn't, again, big Welsh. I'm happy for him to be number
Yeah,
4, number 3, kind
yeah,
of centre back floating around. I don't mind him. I think he's good. I think he's decent enough. And I think like at home against Rangers with the team they have at the moment, like he would be fine. I don't think he'd be as good as Vickers, if not nowhere near. But like if we had to play him, I
yeah.
wouldn't be any less confident because I'm not that
Yeah.
confident anyway. Going into the match,
He came in. He came into the Champions League game, and listen, Champions League is a very high level, and you're playing the Dutch champions Feyenoord, who that night played their full team.
Yeah,
The guy up front, his name escapes me, Jimenez,
yeah.
the Mexican striker, and he dealt with his threat pretty well, Stephen Welsh. So I wouldn't have as much confidence in him starting as I would with a player like Cameron Carter Vickers playing, but he could equally do. He can do a job.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, basically the last thing on the preview part of the derby is kind of we've been dancing around this one all show, but can Kyogo find his shooting boots? I'm confident coming into this game that he is at all firing on all cylinders, like you mentioned
Yeah,
earlier. The chance against Dundee, Kyogo of 6 months ago, Kyogo of 4 months ago, last season, whatever you want to think of it as, he's scored in that. He's maybe even getting 2 goals against Dundee,
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think if he gets a goal, it could really ignite the season, similar to how we mentioned O'Reilly
Yeah,
last year. Didn't have great goal scoring form first half of the
yeah,
season, and then it sparked for him. So I think the wee man can do it. I think a big part of the problem that's hindered him this year, and you look at Celtic and maybe a lot of other people listen to the show through that kind of similar lens as I do, like really watching what's going on and who did this and and trying to read between the
yeah,
lines on everything. And Kyogo is desperate to take penalties, but no one will give him the ball. And the
yeah,
amount of times where he's got the option to play someone through,
yeah,
like Dyson, namely, to put Dyson one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and he opts to play someone else who will have to play the ball back to Kyogo so he can take the shot.
yeah,
There's so many little things like that that I just think that he just isn't probably not even. People keep talking about the service, right? I'm not even sure if it's the same service, but I just don't think he's that as well like integrated into the squad
mhm,
as he maybe was under Ange. I think because
mhm,
the Brendan Rodgers approach to the new it is much more of a team vibe, and
yeah,
Rodgers is in there with the boys, and we'll all talk about it and we'll work it out in training and all this kind of stuff. And I think if he, strikers, goal scorers have to be ultimately selfish, but I think Kyogo is really borderline between being detrimentally selfish at times.
yeah,
Before games, who's on penalties, and I say some of these other instances, you can watch games going by where he should be playing somebody through and he doesn't, or other stuff like that where he will make a selfish run rather than a unselfish one at times, depending on where the ball is and stuff like that. And I just worry that sometimes that, I say he's a bit borderline on that goal scorer, killer instinct. I'm selfish. It's all about me kind of
yeah,
thing. And it's very subtle because he's a little smiling guy and he's all happy and you don't hear him talking in the press or anything. But you really need to watch the options he's got sometimes and the amount of times he doesn't take some of those options.
yeah,
Or, and I say it's stuff like trying to get penalties when you know Hatate is going to take it, or you know this guy's going to take it. It's probably discussed before the game and whatever. Just bring something else onto the pitch, and it's just I don't know. So can you find the shooting boots is the question I'm
Yeah.
dancing around here. Sorry, guys. I hope so. But I do worry that he's maybe, lost a bit of his, I've got a jigsaw in my mind and a piece that doesn't fit anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing with Kyogo is he's low in confidence. That's evident at the minute.
Yeah.
But he has form for scoring in Glasgow derbies. Last season, scored in the League Cup final, scored at Celtic Park. He won the game at Ibrox earlier in the season. So he does live for the big occasion, scored 2 goals in the Champions League, scored in 2 out of 3 Celtic's Champions League games this season. So he lives for the big occasion, but he has low on confidence. So you've got those two kind of positives, negatives potentially outweighing each other at the minute. It's tough to say, can he find the shooting boots? It's a tough question, to be honest. We won't know until Saturday. It's a wait and see for me, depending on how well the team plays, the chances he gets, the decisions he makes in the game, like you've said. It's a tough one. Hopefully for the fans, hopefully for himself, he can get himself among the goals. I don't think the squad, obviously we've had the Australia squad out, the South Korean squad out for the Asian Cup. The Japan squad's not out yet. I would expect him to be in there, but with his form, potentially Hajime Moriyasu could look at other options. I don't know who the starting strikers for Japan are. I know of the boy Ueda at Feyenoord. I know of Daisen Maeda at Celtic. I'm not entirely sure who else you've got. There's a boy Nakamura playing in Belgium. I believe it is something like that, but he's not a striker. So you want to do his Asian Cup chance as well.
Yeah.
And that could come with a couple of goals in this derby. But we'll just have to wait and see till Saturday.
Yeah, let's hope so. He is a big game player. You're totally right there. And yeah, like I really do hope he can get that goal or two and really spark his season off and kind of get back to that happy, smiley Kyogo. And hopefully, like I say, some of these things that I see kind of happening, maybe I'm overthinking it. They just kind of get snuffed out a little bit, and we just get back to free scoring, all out attack Celtic. We've got predictions. Okay, so I'm going to go with Celtic 2-0.
I don't want to give a prediction. It's so hard at the minute. I'm going to go with, obviously, I want to be positive and go for a Celtic win, and I think I'd get hounded in the comments if I didn't. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 Celtic win.
2-1. Right, interesting. I see. That's me being very. I really don't know. I think I know they should attack us. They probably should score, but I don't know. I could just see this game being a bit. I've been at a few of the derby matches since we've had this like whole allocation problem, and like if we get a goal or two early, like there's enough of those players in that Rangers team I've seen go missing in those games. So if we can get the crowd going, if we get a goal in the first half, I'm thinking 2-0. It's probably going to be one of those boring ones where it's like cards and corners everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe Celtic score in the first 10, and then the second goal comes right after half time or something, and it's all argy-bargies, and everyone's using their subs, and the game gets a bit hairy or whatever. So that's the best picture I can imagine for the game. I'm not really too sure I can see us thumping them or turning them over. I don't really think. Actually, I don't want to talk about anything negative. I don't want to bring anything in.
The most important thing is getting the 3 points and getting the win, because if Celtic don't win the game, if they lose the game, puts them in a very sticky situation regarding the league. So
It's huge.
the main thing is getting the 3 points and getting out of this game, getting to St Mirren in the 2nd of January, picking up 3 points in Paisley and leaving this first half of the season behind and looking ahead to what's in store and getting good players in January.
That's it. If you're going to the game, travel safe. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And are you going to the game yourself, mate?
I'm indeed. It should be an interesting one. So enjoy the game if you're going. If you're not going, enjoy it wherever you're watching it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And Merry Christmas. Hope Santa was good to you all. Happy New Year for when it comes. And hail, hail.
Hail, hail. Cheers.